Hi everybody, I'm Jeff,
And I'm Linda.
and welcome to the Paranormal Pub Table, where we talk about the paranormal at a pub table. This week's question of the week is, can a ghost hurt you? Which is a question that we get quite frequently.
Yes.
And we're talking about people that are dealing with paranormal activity in their house, and it's on the rise. They've moved in recently, and some things have happened. Noises. Often starts with strange noises. Sometimes things go missing, various things. And they're getting to the point where they're wondering, how strong can this get? Can it actually hurt me?
Right.
What are your thoughts on this?
It's kind of hard to say. I believe that ghosts can, in a sense, hurt you. And the reason being because I think we've heard quite a few times where people believe that they were pushed downstairs. That seems to be a big thing. Something pushed me down the stairs. And I think that spirits are very much like they were in life. And if you're just a nasty, mean person in life, then you're going to be a nasty and mean person in death as well. And if you're willing to hurt people to get what you want, then I think you're supposed to do that in death as well. I think that's one of those things that just kind of carries over. Is your personality, your attitude towards other people. And I think that if you really have the motivation as a spirit to be able to cause harm to others, you're going to find a way to do it. Even if you don't have a physical body anymore, you're going to find a way to cause harm.
Right. Now, we have seen possible evidence that spirits can interact with objects, as in many of these places, people report objects getting moved.
Right.
And even firsthand, this is something I've seen. I remember standing in this house up in King William, and we were kind of debriefing the gentleman on the case. We just finished up the investigation.
Yes.
And we're standing in his kitchen, and there was this 2-liter bottle of soda. And this thing was nowhere near the edge of the counter.
Right.
The counter was not wet. It had been sitting there during the course of the investigation. And as we're talking to him, this thing just comes flying right off the counter.
Wow.
And it was the one and only time I've seen something like this, something this definite, that I really could
Right.
not explain
Yes.
firsthand right in front of me. It wasn't something that was caught on a video or anything else. It was just something that we saw.
Yeah.
So that being said, it does appear that spirits can move objects. A lot of times, like I said, objects go missing. So if a spirit can interact with a physical object, it stands to reason that it can interact with you.
Right.
And we've had a lot of cases where people have gotten pushed downstairs. We've even been on an investigation.
Yes, we have.
One of them was out in, I'm going to draw a blank on the name of this place. It was that place where it was the old Civil War hospital.
Oh, the one in Gordonsville?
No, it was closer. It was the house that the guy was, where they're having the bonfire in the front yard.
Oh, yeah, that was Quinton,
Virginia.
Yes.
We were upstairs, and some of the people that were there, they said, hey, we want to come in and sit in during an EVP session.
Right.
So they came in, and they're going downstairs at the end, and the one girl goes down the stairs.
Yeah, flying down the stairs.
Flying down the stairs.
Yeah.
And she swore that something pushed her.
Right.
So if ghosts can interact with these physical objects, they can interact with us. They can push us.
Absolutely.
But we've gotten a lot more than that as far as can a ghost hurt you.
Yes.
We've gotten cases where people were waking up in the middle of the night, being pinned down.
Yes.
Somewhere they couldn't breathe. It was like something was trying to suffocate them or strangle them.
Yes.
And in this case, obviously, if that ghost saw that through, it's going to do a lot more than kill you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's sleep paralysis, I believe you're talking about, is what the medical term for it is. And sleep paralysis is one of those things that kind of borders between a medical problem or a sort of spiritual problem. And a lot of investigators, a lot of people are kind of on the fence about this. and they're not really sure whether or not it's something that is caused by a medical condition, a sleep problem specifically, or if it's something that is of a spiritual nature. And in watching a documentary not too long ago on Netflix, I really, after watching this thing, I came to realize that this is most likely a spiritual thing. The people who are like professionals, doctors, sleep doctors, people will often say what they think something is and not really be sure, 100% sure of whether or not it's a medical condition. And that's the way that the sleep doctors tend to be on this, is they look at it and they say, well, it must be a medical condition, so they assign something to it. But in reality, some of these people that were being interviewed on this documentary were people who had experienced this from the time that they were very, very young, sometimes even in the crib, and all the way to the point where they're now adults. And the fact that prayer and calling out to God actually helps the situation, and the fact that some of these people said that they had seen these same creatures while they were awake, not just in sleep.
Because every time this happens, quite often they see this dark figure that comes into their room.
A dark figure, yes. Yes, exactly. And medical science, can explain it away as well. You're halfway between sleeping and an awakened state. And so things that you would normally see in sleep may appear as sort of a shadow, or may appear as kind of a blur, while you're sitting there in your room kind of thinking that you're awake. And that's kind of the thing that they were talking about. But some of these things that these people describe who experience this, they describe something very, very detailed. This is not just a shadow figure. This is not just something they're seeing in their room and saying, hey, it's a shadowy figure. This is something that's like alien beings in their room. And they've seen them while they're awake as well, which tells me that this is not just a sleep problem. This is something that is more than that. And these things often pin you down. They hold you down in the bed, and sometimes choke you or make you feel like you're being choked, like you can't breathe. It's also described in sort of African American society as being ridden by the witch, I think is the original term.
Yeah, now this brings about a whole bunch more questions.
It really does, yes.
So for one, it brings about the question as to this, and with the sleep paralysis, okay, being that evidence suggests that prayer works for it.
Yes.
It brings about the question, is this a human spirit?
No.
Because we know there are multiple types of spirits, and
Right.
some are not human, some that never walk the face of the earth in human form.
That's absolutely
So
right.
is this a human spirit?
I don't believe it is. I mean, personally, I don't believe it is. I think other people may have a lot of different opinions on it. And that's just as well, because everything is always theory. We don't really know for sure. But in my research and my experience with this is a demonic spirit. This is something that is demonic. It's there from the very beginning. I believe that demons can follow you from the point where you are born to the point where you're an adult. And I believe this is something that feeds off fear. It really causes as much fear in a person as it possibly can as they're going to sleep each night. It gives you this helpless feeling, this hopeless feeling. And something that is going to cause that kind of anguish is not going to be a good spirit. Something that is there to sort of cause fear night after night after night, and continue to do so without relenting is, to me, it's got to be something that is demonic.
And that makes sense, of course. But it also brings about the question, prayer can also cure anything. Prayer can be the answer to anything, per se.
Yes.
If this is indeed some sort of a mental affliction,
right,
perhaps prayer is curing this mental problem, and there's no spirit there. It's all in the mind. Is that a possibility?
I I don't believe so.
Why not?
I think there are certain mental conditions, medical conditions per se. Like, if you say your mind is not functioning like it should, physically functioning as it should, this is a medical problem. This is something that is in the physical being of a person.
Right.
And this is not something that a short-term prayer can actually address. Long-term prayer, perhaps. You may be able to pray about a sickness and illness. You may be able to pray about being mentally ill. And eventually, perhaps God will heal you. But when we're talking about something that is in the short term, we're talking about a situation where you have somebody laying there terrified because they're being held down. They see a dark spirit, or they see this weird creature in their room at night, and they don't feel like anybody is there to help them. They're going to call out to God. And if this calling out to God causes this creature in the short term to leave, then that's something very different.
But what if their faith is strong enough to believe that calling out to God is going to help this problem, and this is in their mind, but their mind also tells them calling out to God will fix it?
Well, I mean, that's a very real possibility.
But I guess the way to more put this as more solid evidence that this is not a state of mind, and it is an actual spirit.
Right.
Has there ever been, in your knowledge, a case of sleep paralysis? And I know we're getting kind of sidetracked here with the sleep paralysis, but
yes,
this is tying into can spirits hurt you, because
right.
we first got a question. This is one of the main things that people report.
Yes.
Is this a spirit, or is it a state of mind? Mm-hmm. Have you ever heard of a state or a report where it had this sleep paralysis, where this figure would appear and basically get on somebody and pin them down, and a second person saw it? They had any other witnesses that saw this thing on them, pinning them down?
No. And the reason being because a demonic spirit will not often come and let itself be witnessed by another spirit or by another person. Demonic spirits feed off of fear. If
Right.
you have somebody else in the room with you, somebody else in the bed with you, let's say you have a girlfriend or you have a boyfriend that's laying in the bed next to you asleep, the demonic spirit is going to come in a state when they know this person is in their deepest level of sleep. When it knows it can keep you awake, it can pin you down and make you feel like you are completely isolated and completely alone. And that's what they often do. They feed off of people's fear. If you feel like you have an ally, somebody that's there witnessing this or trying to help you, then it's not getting as much fear out of you as it really wants to.
Right, right. But it is still hard to say, because if you're in a bed with somebody else and you're the only one that sees this figure and they don't see it,
right?
Say they're awake at the time. I guess a lot of times they're sleeping, so
Yeah.
it's hard to validate.
Yeah.
But if they don't see it and you see it, you're either A, sensitive,
Could
to
be.
this, it's appearing just to you, or B, it's coming from your mind.
It very well could be. But at the same time, you have to consider the fact that demons are known to penetrate people's minds. Demons don't have an actual form. They don't have a bodily form, a physical form, right? So they can get into your mind and they can cause you to see what they want you to see. If they want you to see something that is let's say like this alien creature in your bedroom at night, they can do that. So they have an ability to get into your mind, to affect your mind in some ways. And that could be what's happening in this instance. It may not be that this is actually a physical problem that is manifesting itself as a mental issue that can be diagnosed by a doctor. This may be something that is a spiritual issue. And the reason being because they can get into your mind. They can cause you to believe or to think or to see things that you normally would not see.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, as far as ghosts hurting people, and on a side note to that, what if sleep paralysis is aliens? What if they're responsible for that?
That's a distinct possibility as well.
Who knows? But as far as we think, it's probably ghosts.
Yeah.
Or demons.
Yeah.
But as far as can ghosts hurt you, now we've gotten several cases where people were scratched. Scratches are another common thing.
Yes.
And we'd often associate this with a more demonic case.
Right.
But sometimes this was the only indicator there of a typical demonic case, and none of the other factors were there. Do you think a typical, and we got to clarify here, when we're talking about ghosts, there's multiple forms of ghosts, from the inhuman spirits, and we've talked about that in a previous podcast.
Yes.
But if we're talking about ghosts, a case where somebody's getting scratched, yet it doesn't seem that there's any other indicators of demonic activity there.
Right.
Do you think it's possible for a spirit of a human to physically scratch somebody?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's one of the things that people sort of get wrapped up in, the idea of demons nowadays, and they don't keep an open mind about what this could be. They automatically assume that because something is growling or scratching that it's automatically a demon, and that's not necessarily the case. Spirits of humans that have passed over, that have died, they understand what a demon is. They often understand how a demon acts and what a demon does to sort of instill fear in people. If you're one of those spirits that's trying to get rid of the living, if you want the living out of your house and out of your life and out of the way, then perhaps you may see this as an opportunity to act like a demon. And we don't know that that's not true. Like, that could be something that, we may have human spirits that have passed over that are causing this activity that appears on the surface to be demonic activity, but it could be their motivation behind it that causes them to act this way. They may be trying to make people think that they're a demon, in other words, so that they will leave, so that they will get out of the house, so that they'll move out of the house and kind of leave them in peace.
Absolutely. So the main things we've heard as far in the reports that we've collected,
yes,
is how can ghosts hurt people? Yes, they can. It would seem that way.
Yes.
It would seem that they can push people downstairs. It would seem that they can scratch people.
Right.
It would seem that they can hold you down while you're sleeping. And we've had a gentleman say that something tried to suffocate him.
Right.
And that's a common thing too, where they can't breathe or anything, and then all of a sudden it alleviates, like a weight's been lifted. So it does seem that ghosts can hurt people.
Yes.
But it brings about the question, why? Why would a spirit want to hurt somebody? And there are a few reasons for this. I'm going to throw out the first one, is that this spirit may not even know that it is a spirit. Okay? May not even know that he or she is a spirit.
Right. Right.
We brought out this theory. We were at the Park Gate Plantation, and we started talking about this theory, where we're looking for these spirits, and we don't see them. Bits and pieces come through as voices and various things.
Right.
But at the same time, on their end, what if they're not aware that they've passed away? And where they're standing on their side of the veil, everything in that plantation looks like it did back in the 1700s.
Right.
That's the way they're
be.
Perceiving it. It's all in perception.
Yes.
And every once in a while, they're hearing a voice. Or they're seeing a transparent image of us kind of pop through the veil there.
Right.
And they're thinking, oh no, my house is haunted.
Yes.
So one of the things they're trying to do is get us out of their house.
Yes.
And we don't know to what extent they can see us. Just as some people can see ghosts clearly and can see them all around, and others just catch glimpses here and there.
Yes.
Perhaps there's some spirits that can see us very clearly.
Could be.
And they think we're in their house, and they're trying to get us out of their house.
Right. Right. Absolutely. That's a distinct possibility. We can't go back in time. We can't talk to people who are back in time. And it could be that they are reporting, seeing these ghosts in strange clothing, because what we wear nowadays, what we often wear would be very odd to them, but we describe the same thing. We describe spirits of, that are wearing clothing that seems very strange to us. So it's a very distinct possibility that these spirits that think that they're still living in a certain environment, a certain setting, and that they experienced in life and are able to, see through the veil every so often. And that might cause all kinds of problems. If you sit down and think about it, that could be something that causes all kinds of situations, strange situations.
Absolutely. And possible there are spirits that are self-aware and know they are spirits.
Yes.
And like you mentioned, being nasty people in life.
Oh, yeah.
Now you got a pretty nasty spirit on your hand, and this spirit is trying to, do everything it can because it doesn't like you.
Yes.
So it does seem that ghosts can hurt you.
Absolutely.
It really does. For those of you that are watching the YouTube video, make sure that you can tune into our podcast, listen to the whole show while you're at work, on the way to work, while you go to sleep at night. And if you're listening to the podcast, check us out on YouTube at youtube.com/Virginia Paranormal.